Get a lot quieter, isn't it? Thank you guys for all you do for our community.
Thank you for coming. Okay, moving on to public comments. This is the time where citizens are encouraged to speak publicly. We request that you come to the podium and state your, even though there is not a podium currently, state your name and address, speak respectfully, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Have anyone online or anyone here from the public to speak this evening? Okay, all right. Move on to the action agenda, minutes of the September 4th, 2024 meeting.
I move to approve the minutes of September 4th, 2024. Second.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Wentz, seconded by Commissioner Hash to approve the minutes. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to appropriation ordinance number 17.
I move to approve the appropriation ordinance number 17.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Hutchison, a second from Commissioner Wentz to approve appropriation ordinance number 17. Any discussion? Did we receive already the money for the fire truck? I mean, we paid it now, and then do we receive it after?
I'm not recalling on that.
Yeah, I send it immediately and it takes a few weeks and we'll come back from CDBG and USDA.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to ordinance 2024-3227 zoning change for 316 East 16th Street.
Assistant Mayor and Commissioners, this is an ordinance, changes zoning at corner of 16th and Kansas Street. Empty lot one of a house that burnt down years ago. The other one had dilapidated trailer houses on it. Been vacant for quite a while. Some of the trailers have been vacant for decades. Mr. Berry and I purchased that, and his eventual goal is to develop it for RV storage and boat storage, rented. And so he's asking for this zoning change. And the recommendation is for the approval of that from the planning commission. He also needs a conditional use permit, which we can pursue next if get through this. I'll stand through any questions for that zoning change.
So is there a street between those lots? Or is it it's just the drawing? So it's got lot,
Oh, well, it's two separate lots.
okay,
That the county had it listed as, but he's gonna combine them to one lot. One of them was address 304 East 16th, and that's where the Schleffel's house burnt down years ago. Mr. Schleffel lived there.
okay.
And then that's lot set empty for, in fact, we had to do some actions to get him to clean it up. And then, I think, yeah, Snavely did it under the demo program, and then, of course, the other one, you know, then so wait for years. So he purchased them both. We can't take that one lot with the trailer houses and change just the zoning of that, because that's not extending its existing commercial zoning. So he purchased that lot below.
Oh, I see.
And that way it makes it legal by zoning standards, state zoning standards, to extend the zoning. You can extend the zoning, but you can't take a lot in the middle of a residential neighborhood change. And I thought this might work because we have commercial and industrial uses right across this alley and right across the street, and kitty corner to the north. It's just one block off the highway. So that's kind of it transitions to residential there, but this lot, I don't think ever had any interest. I've gotten 3 or 4 or 5 calls over the years on these lots for commercial development. I never got a single call for any kind of residential development, so I don't know if it's undesirable for residential or.
It says the development provides 90% density screening adjacent to the residential uses to the north and east adjacent.
That's part of the conditional use permit. Which is a separate zoning action that he has to get if he gets the commercial zoning.
Okay,
And then we'll look at the conditional use permit ordinance, and that's where you can put conditions on, take condition off, you can alter that however you want. But when we discussed it with the planning commission, that was one of the things that they made clear, and Mr. Berry agreed to, that they would have that, they would design that lot so that they would be 90% screening adjacent to and across the street from residential, which really isn't required. It's kind of ambiguous if you read the rule that across the street residential sometimes can be interpreted a little bit differently, depending on if headlights are going to shine right into somebody's window or something early in the morning or late at night, something like that. But if you want to put an entrance off of that, you can almost adjacent it to Kansas Street to where you wouldn't be, nobody be entering and exiting from that site. But they still are looking at design features. They've got a couple different options they want to do. They want to explore drive-through in the middle of the lot, which would put fencing all the way around it probably, and then secure it. Have a gated system you were talking about.
I move to approve ordinance 2024-3227.
second. Moved by Commissioner Wentz, seconded by Commissioner Hutchison. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. And moving on to ordinance 2024-3228, conditional use permit for 316 East 16th Street.
Yeah, this ordinance requires, our zoning rules require a conditional use permit for the very fact that in commercial zoning for putting storage units on it, so you can put conditions on it for this very reason. And after discussions, we added the condition of, the one condition you always want to put on there, that they keep it safe and secure and keep it maintained and that sort of thing and follow all the rules. And we added the condition of 90% density on those 2 sides, no matter what. So it just solves the problem if there's any worry about it. And by the way, at the public hearing, the neighbor to the east was at the public hearing. And I introduced myself and asked him who he was, and he told me, and he wanted to see what was going on. He left with assurance. He wasn't worried at all. He said, I was just wondering what they were developing in now. He said and now there's just a bunch of junk trees in between the 2 lots that they plan on cleaning up. So I think he's kind of happy that it's going to be developed instead of looking at them old trailer houses. That's what I got out of it.
There's already kind of screening there, and we told him that if it becomes an issue or where we throw a fence up, that's no big deal.
Seems, where it butts up to commercial, and there's obviously a need for that here in town to allow for a place for people to store RVs and boats. That is ideal, I guess, definitely, in comparison to what's there now. A industrial area would be maybe more ideal, but not as available, and that's what's available, and it works, and especially with the screening, that makes it more desirable, like location wise, just to kind of keep it separated a little bit from the neighbors.
I appreciate it a lot, to develop that. It hasn't, it's sat empty for such a long time. So really appreciate your
And I
willingness
talked
to
to
jump in.
the demo guy on the way here. He's thinking Tuesday or Wednesday he could start in, so
Yeah, that's great.
it's an eyesore right now.
It certainly is.
And we were trying to develop it too, to where that north end we could use the buildings for screening too. So,
You still plan on maybe having a building along that north property line?
I mean-
That can become a screen itself, you know, building, so. As long as there's not openings facing,
we'll know more when we get it cleaned off and start with a clean slate.
they've got it surveyed, they've had Cameron Johnson up there surveying it and kind of give them a little, rough topography, you know, showing how they can, cause it does slope pretty good. So they have to deal with that, which is not ideal. And you're right, industrial areas are ideal for this. I saw they don't require a conditional use permit for an industrial use of rented mini storage or even self-storage. You could just have an industrial site. And I've had several inquiries on people that have lots of industrial land about building these, and there, a couple of them that I worked with a bit before they backed out was their thought of, you know, you got $300,000 RV, you're not gonna store it under a tin shed. You know, that's not secure. And that, you know, they want just build pole sheds and which is fine. I mean, that's allowed type of construction, but I think once they kind of talk to people that were in the business, they maybe realize that the investment has to be a little greater on the style of building and stuff.
Convenience wise, being, I guess, centrally located. And then plenty of police force patrolling homes makes that, I guess, more secure as well. So,
Pretty convenient to the highway too,
Right.
for getting on and off, so hopefully they can work it out.
Well, I'd approve ordinance 2024-32-28.
Second,
we have a motion by Commissioner Hutchinson, second by Commissioner Hash. Any further discussion? All in favor?
aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Vernon.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I'm
guys.
next again, so. Good to go.
Thank you, guys.
I'll be contacting you. We'll have a copy of it. All right.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to ordinance 2024-3229, 2017-2018 building codes.
This ordinance is a recommendation from the Board of Building Trades, and we've been working on the 2018 code. We went through all of them that we normally adopt and amend, and there's a lot of local amendments you do for city of Concordia and those kind of things. We've done other amendments. This is the first time we actually didn't take out the complete energy section of the residential code, but we pared it down to just a small list. And so now, whenever you put an addition on a house or remodel a house or build a new house, you gotta at least have some sort of R value in it. Which, believe it or not, there's some people don't like that idea that you have to insulate your. So that's the one thing that changed pretty much of all this, other than the updates. And they kept the electrical the same on residential, you know, now arc faults are being required everywhere. And there used to be, in 2011, they went from arc faults, everything that wasn't GFCI protected, and now they want everything arc faulted. And it's coming to the point in some of the cities where they're putting in the GFC or the arc fault ranges, 240 range receptacles, and they're having to put them up high because they keep tripping. So they just eliminate them after the inspector goes away, apparently. But we don't have that requirement except on bedroom circuits, which was the original requirement for our fault circuit breakers. Because if a house fire starts, it's usually something happening in the bedroom 80% of the time, I guess. And then if you leave out the garage, 80% of the house fire start garages. So, but that's what we got. This is we worked on this for over almost a year and a half. We worked on these, and that's the 2017 National Electrical Code because they're on a different cycle. But everything in the 2018 building code and everything that's electrical related, which isn't much, but everything in the residential code that in the electrical section of the residential code is directly verbatim out of the National Electrical Code, which is written by different bodies. So they collaborate on it. So you don't have any confusion between the two codes, because some electricians like to quote the electrical code and some like to use the residential code.
So I had a couple of questions.
Sure.
You eliminated the automatic fire sprinklers, you deleted the entire section.
for residential 1 and 2 family dwellings. That's under the residential code. It still applies to commercial as assemblies and restaurants and things like that.
So what does it do to like downtown apartments?
Well, that's a different deal because it's not a single family dwelling detached. You're talking two different occupancy classifications in one building. And whenever you sleep somebody in a building, you can pretty much bet that the code is going to require a sprinkler system. Or whenever that occupant load is a restaurant or a drinking establishment, if it gets over 100, then we got to sprinkle the building.
So 2 different sections you deleted that.
And the residential code. The RC. Section,
Well, and then section P 2904.
yeah, that's the plumbing section of the residential code. Where it refers you back. If you
Yeah.
you're gonna get that, a lot of redundancy in the code, so the plumbing section talks about how the sprinkler system can be installed in a 1 and 2 family dwelling. The general requirements require the sprinkler system in a 1 and 2 family dwelling, and we nixed that out. That's been in there since 2009 is when they brought that out of the appendix chapter into the body of the code, and it wasn't very popular. I took a class maybe 6 months ago. It was at our last spring conference, I guess, it was last spring. And the teacher of the class, of course, a lot of those guys are ICC certified teachers, they teach all over the country and some of them all over the world. And the question came up about this actual section in the residential code. And he says he's met 3 jurisdictions only that require that. Everybody else kicks it out. Because it used to be your insurance company would give you a discount, but there's too many accidents happening where they go off accidentally from some kid knocking it or
Yeah.
whatever, and it causes more damage. So you don't get the insurance. That's how they sold it in the code to start with. But it's not a very popular item in the code, and it's a lot of that type of thing was not very popular when it got in. There's a lot of confusion how it got in. It happened in the 08 annual, international annual meeting, and nobody likes it. Nobody wants to build a house, put a sprinkler system in it, but if you put an apartment upstairs and you can't prove to me that that apartment existed before, then when you create an apartment, then you gotta sprinkle the whole building, and that's really detrimental to development downtown and apartments. But we do have a couple that are sprinkled. And
But anything that was existing, that's not their requirement because it already was that.
you can prove there was an apartment there before. Some
Even
of
if it
those upper
wasn't in
levels
use.
weren't apartments. They were doctor's offices, or they were the Odd Fellows Hall above the Cafe Gaston. Remember when the Gambino's was Cafe Gaston, but that rule didn't apply then. All he had to do was put his fire separation between the two. You know, like the floor ceiling assembly had to be a fire resistant. But now it's, and they warned us that in the classes that we take, that the codes are gonna try to sell sprinkler system, and the way they're gonna do it is forgive other requirements in the code. And the first place I think I saw it was in the hospital building, because normally a firewall will go in between offices, will go all the way to the ceiling, but if the building's sprinkled, it just has to go above the suspended ceiling instead all the way to the deck above, depending on certain things, you know. But there's lots of forgiveness in construction now with fire resistant construction and fire assemblies if you sprinkle a building. But in some cases, there's no forgiveness at all. You just do it all because it's too dangerous of a structure or too big or something. But
So one other question.
sure.
Section 2901, you deleted something about private sewage disposal systems.
Yeah, they're not allowed in Concordia unless you can't get hooked up. Our code in our city code of ordinance has a plumbing section, and that was because it's there because we never did have a plumbing code, and that section still is it still has meaning on the sanitary sewer system on how they can hook up to our system. And the only way you can have a septic system here in the city of Concordia is if you can't get to our main, our sanitary sewer main. And our rules actually state that if your land is within 250 feet of a main, then you have to be hooked up to a main. So basically this says, we delete that section because we don't want anybody thinking they can do a septic system in Concordia. Now, if you get to certain parts of town where there's older structures that couldn't get hooked up at the time, they're still home store, they're still on a septic system. Because they didn't have a main anywhere near, a lot of those businesses out there were like that, but as we got that main out there, some of them hooked up. Jared would probably speak to that better than me, but that's why we took that out of there. We don't want septic system unless they absolutely cannot get to a main.
What's the reasoning for that?
Excuse me?
What's the reasoning for that? Just because it is accessible or?
Probably
It
because of
smells
the
bad.
amount of land it takes to do one, maybe that's part of it. And then where's the leach field gonna be, on your neighbor's property or right next to your neighbor?
Yeah.
You know, there may be. And then we do have them and they are allowed under certain conditions. When I bought my house, it was on a septic system that wasn't right. And the leach field was an open ditch to the creek. And it was in town and I had to buy 400 feet of pipe to get to the main. It was across an acre of land and across 13th Street. Had to dig up the street, dig up the neighbor's yard, tear up their sprinkler system. I didn't like that,
But you never have to worry about it again. You never have to worry about sanitary.
I'm not, yeah, I'm not worried. It never failed me. That pipe never failed me. So, yeah, I mean, that's why we nixed it out there, because we don't want somebody reading that code and saying, oh, we can do a septic system instead of worrying about digging up the street or something. I don't know that I've ever been even asked about that. You know, if it was allowed. I know that I do have some people on septic system that asked about getting it to the main. You know, and I usually turn that over to Jeremy, but.
I think,
Another one?
no.
Is that right?
I'm surprised I did that without looking at the.
I move to approve ordinance 2024-3229.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Hutchison, a second by Commissioner Wentz to approve ordinance 2024-3229. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
And thank the building trades.
I will.
For doing
A
all
lot
the
of work.
work.
Yeah, they do put in a lot of work for that.
Okay, moving on to City Hall server replacement.
As the memo says, our server is now DOA. We said that we probably they could get it back up and running possibly, but we were gonna have to throw a lot of parts at it. They've been talking to me since last year that this server is now out of warranty. It's now 6 years old. The last one crashed and we had to get it quickly. So it was probably expected we were going to be doing something fairly soon, but now we're kind of forced. We went to an expensive backup system that lets us run in the cloud. It's super slow for the girls up front. When they ring people up, it takes forever. So, and then also after 30 days, they start charging us, and I don't know how much that will be. Lockett talked about giving us a temporary server, but again, after so many days, they have to charge us for that. And then there's all the migration to that server. So we just figured really the only answer was to get another one. We can hardly operate without one. So they gave us the quote. We've been with Lockett since their inception. We were probably one of their first customers. Before that, we were with Computer Solutions and Kirby Fox worked for them. So they're exceptional to work with, and almost everybody knows our system and can work on it remotely. So we would ask that you recommend or approve that. We could leave out the $1,898 for the offset or for the battery backup, but that one is, I think they told me, over 5 years old. And sometimes if it fails, it can harm your computer or your server, so. We haven't spent much out of the computer replacement fund this year, so we do have money for it. And,
And this doesn't include that,
this doesn't.
$165 an hour.
They include, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little extra, but there was,
Well, at the top it says labor. Is
There
an
was-
estimate, and I couldn't find it.
I thought there was something here that said something about labor.
Yeah, it says it.
Okay.
It's not included as a specific
Yeah.
line item.
They did not. And one other thing that we may have to do is also pay Tyler Technologies to move our financial software over. I haven't talked to Kirby to see if they're planning to do that, but if not, that's another $1,200 somewhere in there. But that has to be done right, and that's the reason we have the SQL server, because that's what that runs on. Otherwise, we would not need that additional. We would need some of that server licensing, but not the SQL, I don't believe. So that becomes a little costly, but you're right, I thought. I guess I read the $500 for the build fee. But there will definitely be more than just that. And labor is not cheap, no, IT,
$65.
yeah.
Talking about $3,300.
It's, they'll bring it over partially ready to go, but then they have to move on through all of our things there, and then our software that takes quite a bit to move as well. I didn't ask him if that was part of, I haven't got a chance to talk to him, but I do think some of that's gonna be moving our Tyler over there, and then they always talk to them on the phone, try to get everything running correctly.
It looks like it's something that, I mean, has to be done. So I would move to approve the quote from Lockett Technologies of $12,719.63 for the new server and up to 20 hours at $165 for labor.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Hutchison and a second by Commissioner Wentz to approve the quote from Lockett Technologies for $12,719.63 for the server and up to 20 hours labor billed at $165 an hour for the conversion. Any other discussion? Cybersecurity, I guess, was a little bit of my question. And are we on fiber or are we getting on fiber here? I guess those are separate questions, but they're somewhat related to this.
We are on fiber,
Are on fiber.
and we have cybersecurity through, I mean, it's through Midwest Public Risk, who we have our property and liability insurance. However, we pay a separate company for that.
So you pay for the insurance. But do we have like, I mean, I'm sure a firewall, but we have adequate security for the cloud-based and for the
Yeah,
server?
in fact, just Friday, I believe, Thursday or Friday, they came, that Thursday or Friday before, they came and installed. It's some new antivirus, it's top of the line.
Lockett installed.
Mhm. And I gave them a hard time that
You crashed your
they
server?
crashed our server a few hours later. But, anyway, they did come, they had to come here and install that on everyone's computer. And they obviously don't, I said, can we drop our cybersecurity policy? And he said, no, this will help that for sure. And it might give us a cheaper cost on it because we do have such a good antivirus now. But there's new things all the time, and it's kind of scary what people can do to your system. But with this new antivirus, part of it is they will monitor everything regularly. They'll also send out, what do you call it, phishing emails to see if our employees will take the bait. And so we can get a little bit more schooled about, and don't click on this. don't-
You just left it out of the bag, not everyone knows.
No.
Okay, well, that's good to know that those things are in place, so they're kind of the top priorities, I guess, of
Yes.
the technology world right now, so. Okay. With that, we'll cast a vote. All in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Managers report.
There's, at your table is a handout for, related to the groundbreaking ceremony. You received the invitation in your email, and this is a handout, a draft of the handout that's going to be shared with everyone at the groundbreaking next Friday at 10 a.m. We are celebrating specifically the completion of the infrastructure portion of the St. Joe subdivision, which is a major milestone in our overall housing project, as well as the start of construction of the first of the moderate income homes. And that construction should start October 1st is what is planned. So you see on the front of the handout, it gives just kind of an overview of what will happen at the groundbreaking. And then on the back are some major points about the project, your talking points about the project. So we hope to share that with everyone next Friday. And that way people are armed with the good information about that project. Of course, if they have any questions, they can always reach out to Deb, or they can continue to happily answer their questions about that. Last Tuesday, Deb and I went to the Christian Women's Outreach Coffee Group and had a chance to speak a little bit about this project, and they were really excited to hear what was going on and asked a lot of really good questions. And aside from that, I just wanted to say thank you. We have several of our city staff departments that are assisting the Fall Fest Committee in preparations for next weekend's celebration. So appreciate their work and their efforts, and that of the Fall Fest Committee themselves. They do a ton of work to make next weekend a really enjoyable event for everyone here. Happy to answer questions.
Staff reports.
We had the appraisers meeting. I think I reported on that already. We had that beginning of the month. And we did have the hearing for the eminent domain yesterday. What is today? Wednesday? Yesterday. Got that all taken care of. The judge approved the petition, approved the amount. And so what I will do is there's a 30-day appeal period. Nobody appeared for the hearing. I no way, shape, or form think anyone would try to appeal it at this point in time because no one's shown up through all of the other stuff. So in 30 days, when the appeal period runs, I file what's called an order transferring deed, and then that parcel of land will become property of the city. Questions? All right. We'll be done soon. Thanks.
So this afternoon, I found out that unfortunately, we didn't qualify for the SRO grant. There's only 3 agencies in Kansas that were eligible. Most of it went out in the eastern part of the United States, all the funding. But I sent an email to Mr. Breeze, and we're definitely going to sit down and see how we can, and definitely bring it back to you guys, how we can work out keeping our officers in the school and seeing what they're thinking as well.
Your staff reports. Commissioner comments or reports? I don't have anything. All right.
I move that the city commission recess into executive session to discuss confidential business data or trade secrets of a business, KSA 754319B4, with Scott Andre.
Take that out.
Nope, with Amy Lang in attendance.
And Justin.
And
Sorry,
Justin, that's
I didn't
okay.
Put that in there. I put it in my own minutes, but.
Should have thought before I wrote. And to reconvene in the city commission chamber at 6:25.
Second.
Second?
Okay, moved by Commissioner Hutchison, second by Commissioner Hatch to recess into executive session. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion.
Yes.
No action was taken.
I move to adjourn.
Seconds.
Adjournment moved by Commissioner, second by Commissioner Wentz. All in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Have a great day.
It's been all